So the PlayStation 4 Pro has been out for a couple weeks now, and this is the first console from both Sony and Microsoft's efforts of kind of filling in that generational gap and providing more power and higher performance mid-cycle without completely jumping to the next generation of consoles. But the question still remains, is this a good move for Sony and Microsoft? Now, the PlayStation 4 Pro has been out for a little bit, and we've had some mixed reviews concerning it. People are excited about the PlayStation 4 Pro more for its potential of what it can provide later down the road more than what's available now, since not every game has a PlayStation 4 Pro mode and is able to take advantage of the extra powerful hardware. However, what's more imperative to these companies is the sales and how it does numbers wise, to be quite frank. And just looking at the numbers, the PlayStation 4 Pro apparently increased the PlayStation 4 sales by 204% within the first 4 days. Now, this is coming from Red Gaming Tech, which I believe got that from NPD. I'll have a link to that video in the description, but this is really interesting, and it begs the question, how well are they going to do down the road? I think a lot of it is really going to have to do with specific games and how these games utilize the hardware. I've seen a lot of people talk about getting PlayStation 4 Pro because they want to play Final Fantasy 15 and its 4K mode or the higher frame rate mode, because they just want to play that game in the most pristine way possible. And since no PC version has currently been announced, which I'm sure there will be one eventually, but as for now, it's going to be a console exclusive, and the best way to play it will most likely be on the PlayStation 4 Pro. Square Enix has already announced that they will be adding a mode that will target 60 frames per second, and there is going to be a 4K mode in the game. I don't think they'll be available quite at launch, but it'll be out, and that'll be the best way to play the game. And so far, we've seen examples of exactly what a system like the PlayStation 4 Pro can provide to console gamers. And, basically it provides a more PC-like experience for some games, and other games it's just a higher quality version of what we've already played. For example, Naughty Dog has taken both approaches with two different titles. With The Last of Us Remastered, they've taken the approach where they give you the option either to run it in a 4K mode at 30 frames per second, or you can do a higher frame rate mode that runs that looks better than the base PlayStation 4 Pro, or excuse me, PlayStation 4 mode, but it doesn't look quite as pristine as that 4K mode or the downsampled 1080p mode, with like max settings. So that's more similar to the type of experience you get on PC, where you have choice, you can change the settings, you have sliders and different things you can do. With Uncharted 4, Naughty Dog has taken the approach to just it basically scales depending on which type of display you have it plugged into. If it's connected to a 4K display, then you'll get a 1440p native image upscaled to 4K, and if you're on a 1080p monitor or television, it'll render it at 1440p and downsample to 1080, which gives you free anti-aliasing basically, and it cleans up those edges and makes it look nicer. This has given a lot of people a taste of what it's like to PC game if you're not already familiar, but I have a feeling that there's a lot of crossover with people who both PC game and play consoles, and they were quick to jump on this PlayStation 4 Pro and purchase it. What I personally think about the PlayStation 4 Pro is that I think it has the right thought process in mind, but I think Sony is really being a little too cautious with how they're handling it, because they're really concerned with compatibility first. So what they've done is essentially, this is how Mark Cerny explained it to most people who asked him, is they've taken the GPU, the same GPU, and basically it's a mirror image. They basically doubled the size of the GPU, so it's basically just like stitching the GPU to a mirror image of itself, so that doubled the clock speed, and they just have the same CPU in there and upclocked it to make sure that all games that previously ran on base hardware will run on this without any problem. Now, the GPU is more powerful, right? So you'd expect that games that ran a certain way on the PlayStation 4 would run better on the PlayStation 4 Pro. However, they've added some sort of algorithm or some sort of check in these games to where it has to have a specific PlayStation 4 Pro mode flagged for it to kick in that extra GPU power. Otherwise, it'll just run at the same clock speed as the base PlayStation 4 to ensure that the games run. But what we've seen with the Xbox One S, which the GPU isn't that much more powerful than the base hardware, but it is running at a higher clock speed, and we've seen frame rate increases, and the games don't break just because extra horsepower is thrown at them. And with the PlayStation 4 Pro, you have the example of Arkham City, the remaster, running at an unlocked frame rate for some reason on PlayStation 4 Pro, and it doesn't have any specific enhancements or optimization done for PlayStation 4 Pro hardware. So that shows that, you know, maybe Sony is fretting over not that much, and they should look at, you know, unlocking that so that people get immediately benefits from the PlayStation 4 Pro hardware, because you're paying for that spending that extra $100 so that you can get that extra performance. We still have yet to see really how the PlayStation 4 Pro affects Sony's sales. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. And, you know, maybe they'll mention something or other at the PlayStation experience, which is happening, I believe, next weekend, not this upcoming weekend, but the next weekend. And we'll see if they mention numbers, which, you know, they don't typically do that at their conferences at those events, but we'll have some sort of numbers released. Maybe they'll talk about PlayStation 4 Pro. They'll probably for sure talk about VR, upcoming stuff for that, and perhaps mention how successful it's been. I don't really know, but we'll find out. I think PlayStation 4 Pro is going to be worth it down the line, and I do plan on picking one up eventually. It just seems like it's the right move, and it may seem counterintuitive to what consoles have always been in the past, but I think that this is where it has to go, because, you know, PC is, as far as innovation and hardware, it advances too quickly. You can get very powerful hardware for a relatively inexpensive price. Now, PC still has its downsides. You know, the fact that a lot of the cheapest way to upgrade is to do it yourself, essentially. Not everyone wants to do that. And there's all these other things that come with PC gaming, but on the upside, you get more power, you know, per capita. So it's really a matter of preference, and this is kind of bridging that gap and giving people more options. And if you want the extra hardware without the hassle of, you know, PC, the ball is in, you know, Sony's park as to, you know, how they handle it. If they allow you to really utilize this machine to run games better, or run base PlayStation 4 games better without developers having to do specific optimizations, that automatically upgrades the entire PlayStation 4 library. And then with the added benefit of specific enhancements for the PlayStation 4 Pro, those games are even better. I can't wait to see how Horizon Zero Dawn plays in person. You know, Spider-Man's probably gonna look fantastic running on PlayStation 4 Pro. Can't wait to see it. And we've already seen it running on base PS4 hardware. The games look great already. And I'm excited to see what happens with the Xbox Scorpio. I think that really took Sony by surprise. It certainly took everyone else by surprise, the fact that they announced this, and, you know, they caught whiff of the leaked specs ahead of the E3 announcement, and that probably caught Sony off guard, because Microsoft appeared to be taking a more brute force approach to the to achieving 4K, and I'm sure they're going to have their own tricks and things to reach that 4K 60 frames per second on games, as opposed to the PlayStation 4, which, even though it's more than twice as powerful as the base PS4 hardware, the Xbox Scorpio is significantly more powerful. They could have done a higher clock speed on the PS4 Pro, of course, to, you know, close the gap. I don't really know why exactly they didn't do that. Perhaps they were afraid of how Microsoft would react to that, who knows. But I'll have a link to the Red Gaming Tech video, as well as Digital Foundry, because they make great content concerning the PlayStation 4 Pro. If you want in-depth videos and analysis, you should head on over there and check that out. Great content. Well, that's it for this video. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Subscribe for more and follow the channel on Twitter. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, stay super, and I'll see you in the next video.